Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I am your host, Carrie Siggins, and I am so glad to have you today. My guest today is Dane Espegard, and he is one of the most fun guests I've talked to. I love his philosophy, which is go live your dreams. And that's exactly what I think. I am all about just going for it. I figure life is too short, life is crazy, the world is nuts right now. You might as well just do it because, well, what's the other alternative? Not living your dreams, not going for it. So, the conversation that we have around dreams is so much fun. So, Dane is the author of The Dream Machine, which is an A to Z guide on how to set up a culture of achieving your dreams in the workplace. And this is so great because it's all about helping your employees articulate their dreams professional, family, travel, financial, health whatever their dreams are, and then supporting them as they go after those dreams. Where they can check them off. And if you're like me, I definitely go after my dreams, both professionally and personally. And when I am living that moment, when I achieve that, it's like, oh, I'm so on fire. I'm so engaged. So Dane makes the case that if leaders help their employees live their dreams, articulate their dreams, go after their dreams. It is a great retention tool. It's a way to increase engagement, especially in this era of great resignation, especially in this new era of quiet quitting, and really create this culture where you have high performers who achieve extraordinary outcomes both in work and out of work. And who doesn't want that for their employees? So you're going to love this interview with Dane. He's awesome. Hang tight, and I'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited to bring you Dane Espegard. Dane, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, before the show started, Dane and I were talking about Austin, Texas, living in Austin. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. I'm a dad of two little ladies. I've got a 6-year-old and 4-year-old daughters. Birthday for the 6-year-old was yesterday, so we're still celebrating. I'm married to my wife, Brooklyn, and I've been in the direct sales industry for the last 20 years. A lot of people have heard of Cutco knives. So the college student job, I started doing that right out of school in Wisconsin, and then that's what I did to pay my way through college at University of Wisconsin. And then decided to stay with the company as a career position just right out of college. I was really intrigued by the personal growth culture that they had and really liked kind of the taste of entrepreneurship with that as well. So got into management and I've ended up staying with Cutco for quite a long time. I now run a large division within their company, basically all the neighboring states to Minnesota. And then I'm an investor in real estate as well with mobile home parks and some other rentals. And then last year I published my first book called The Dream Machine. And that's really what my passion project is. I published that last year and I've had a ton of opportunities since then to work with different companies on helping to consult around, their current culture and implementing a culture that's a little bit more exciting, centered around dreams.
I love it. I love it. I want to get into all that, but I'm super curious about, staying with a company from college to where you are now. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what you've learned along the way, because that's not necessarily
Yeah.
a usual career path these days.
Yeah, especially, it's a high turnover job in, direct sales just in general. I always joke around it's the longest summer job I've ever had because I've been here for 20 years now. But for me it was I fell in love with the environment that was centered around personal growth. And I feel like my parents raised me in that light, but not necessarily as direct as that. And I'd always been entrepreneurial, social, outgoing. And so Cutco, I think, really checked a lot of boxes for me as a student before I recognized maybe what my strengths were in the workplace. And then graduating college, I think I was like most students where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I really loved my time at Cutco and they had another position for me. So I got started in that and they have a pretty aggressive advancement opportunity if somebody's interested. And so for me, I'm really driven by competition. I'm really driven by building teams, and so there was a lot within that kept me very occupied for my first 2, 3, 4 years out of school. And it was direct sales, so I was able to earn quite a bit. And I think from that, what I've held on to for the last decade is that I'll leave when I feel like there's no more opportunity for me to grow within the organization or I feel like things have become stale. And so for me, I feel like they're being in a position that I'm in, the ceiling is really whatever I put on it for myself. There's not a cap at all. And I love mentoring and building teams. And so within my organization, it's just a constant build. And we really, the last couple of years, I've been blessed to have some amazing people come through my doors and stay. And so our team right now is as good as it's ever been. And I've been able to maybe work differently than what I did, a decade ago.
So, and tell us a little bit about your organization. What kind of team are you running?
So we have my role is basically to oversee everything that happens for Cutco within a 6 state area. The way that I wear different caps for that. One, we have about 10 offices that are year round. So each one of those locations has their own, call it kind of like franchise owner, if you will. Like they're a district manager, they run that operation. So my job is to help develop them and help with their business planning and some accountability and coaching. I also have my own office, which is in the Twin Cities, and that's the largest producing office in all of Cutco. And so my job is to work with the staff that does all the day to day stuff there. For the most important weeks of the year, we do a lot of onboarding for students. So for about 8 weeks of the year in May and June, I'll run group trainings for a total of about 600 students during those 8 weeks. And so I'll do, virtual training now, where I do that online as well. And then I also will coach our sales professionals. We have a team of about 20 individuals that are not students that have been selling Cutco for a very long time. And the coaching that I do with them is more, I'm not teaching them how to sell. It's more life planning, financial planning, schedule maintenance, balance, that type of stuff as well.
Yeah, those important skills that very few of us learn, but are so important in the workplace.
Yeah. And I really think that's like working with that team is what's allowed our division and our sales to grow on a year to year basis. We haven't lost those people. And a lot of it has to do with the dreams culture, which is me talking with them about what they want to achieve personally, not work goals.
Yeah, that's great. So talk a little bit about the dreams culture and how, it all ties together with your career path.
So I was exposed to the idea. It's not, I didn't come up with this out of thin air. I was exposed to the whole dreams mentality by an author named Matthew Kelly, and he spoke to our entire company in 2007. So that was the first time I made my own dreams list, kind of like a bucket list. And I didn't really do a ton with it, but I was really energized for maybe a month. The kind of you go to a conference and you have the high from that, and then it goes away. And so that's kind of what happened for me with that. I had a few geographical moves within the company where I moved from the Wisconsin area to Omaha and then Omaha to the Twin Cities. And each time I moved, I was starting a team from scratch. So the last time that I moved to Minneapolis, I was more experienced. And so I went back through all my notes of all my reading and growth and all that to decide what's the culture that I want to set up for this move to the Twin Cities. I really wanted it to be the last team that I built. I didn't want to move again. And so I went back to the dreams and I said, this is something that I could be excited about for a very, very long time. And so it started out just with me helping our team members to create a dreams list, which essentially was just what are the things that would light you up over the course of your life if you got the opportunity to do. We've evolved that since then to get into different categories, and what our program is now is much more elaborate. But essentially, anybody who's been with our team for I'd say 6 months, they get introduced to the idea of their dreams list. We openly talk about these things all the time. There's 9 categories that we take people through to make their list. So it's not, travel is an easy one, like where do I want to go in life? But there's also health, like mental and physical health. There's financial, there's career, there's family. So some of this stuff isn't a checking off the list thing, but it's how do I want to be, right? Like how do I want to, the best version of me type of thing. And then everything that we do work related is all connected to that. And so the idea here is this is the vehicle, right? Nobody grows up saying, I want to sell knives. Nobody comes to us and says, I got my dream job. I'm here to sell knives. So really what it's become is that people have a lot of energy around what they're doing because it's allowing them to go and achieve these things, whether it's I need time off and I control my schedule. I need finances to buy my first investment property, or, hey, I need a schedule that's going to allow me to train for a triathlon or something like that. And so what I have found is that if I can get somebody to live a really exciting personal life, it's almost impossible for them not to bring that energy to the workplace. And so I want to say we've almost reversed the focus of not how do you have energy at work, but how do we get this person to just be more engaged with life? and then trusting in that process that they're probably going to be more alive at work.
Yeah, I love that. I actually, the podcast that I'm putting out next week, I think, or in 2 weeks, is all around this idea of quiet quitting. And when I first heard of quiet quitting, I was like, what is that? Why would anybody do it? And then when, I started to actually understand what it is, which it's a terrible term.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, yeah, I get it. And of course, our goals as leaders is to create that type of energizing culture. But you as a leader want to love the life that you have outside of work and love the life that you have inside of work, right? And so why wouldn't we want to help our all of our employees be able to create that? Like, because I'm living my best life, I want to give more, right?
Yeah.
It isn't about like, oh gosh, I'm rising and grinding. No, it's I'm making an impact. I'm doing really big things. And as leaders, we have a lot more autonomy over our work and flexibility to be able to have a more energizing personal life because of that. Those choices that we can make, right? There's more freedom in our choices. So I love this idea
Yeah.
because it's true. People need to feel empowered to live their best life at work and outside of work.
Yeah, and with that, the quiet quitting, I actually, as much as it's a bad title, it's so true. Where it's easy for somebody to just kind of like show up and go through the motions, and
Yeah.
you know, oftentimes leaders will operate out of this place of like, well, I don't want to lose this person, and my response is, you already have, and they're still getting a paycheck, and so you actually do want that person to leave, and you want to replace that person with somebody who's going to be engaged and really purposeful with what they're doing. I was just with a friend of mine. I went on a off the grid hiking trip in just north of Yellowstone last week, and one of the guys I had the opportunity to go with is the CEO of a company named Mulk, and I had the opportunity to go into his business and do a dreams workshop, and he was showing me their Slack channel conversation for his team, and they have a, I don't even know what they use, but it's like hashtag dreams or something. And one of the employees on his team, who's somewhat capped on what she's able to earn in her role, she shared on there publicly, I've doubled my side hustle income, right, since the last dreams retreat. And that was one of her focuses for the year. And what's neat is I feel like when we have this conversation around dreams, it allows people to be more open about who they are instead of, that's probably not something I should talk about at work, right? And the CEO is the first person to go and congratulate that person and say, this is
Yeah.
awesome. This is the type of stuff that we want. And I also think that for me, it's given me permission to live my life out loud. I think there's a lot of leaders that when we get, as you said, we have more autonomy, we have maybe a little bit more opportunity to spend money on this, trip or whatever it is. But what happens is once we get to that position, I think a lot of people feel this like, well, I don't want to talk about those things because I don't want to make an employee or a team member feel bad because they don't have the same opportunity. And what we're doing there without realizing it is we're actually hurting that person's opportunity for development. Because I don't know about you, I was attracted to development and growth in the organization that I'm in because of the leaders and lifestyle. I said, well, I want that. And what I didn't recognize is once I had it, I actually started like covering it up a little bit. And once I started talking about accomplishing dreams to everybody else, it made me feel more comfortable talking about pursuing my own.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I haven't, before I met you, hadn't and was reading all of your stuff, hadn't heard of the dream culture and all of that. But it's exactly the way that I lead and live my life within my company. And I've had so many people ask me, "Well, what do your employees think of your podcast and you're writing a book and all the things that you do on social media?" And I say, I am being a role model. Like,
Mhm.
I'm following the things that fire me up, and all of that pays off for the company,
Yeah.
right? All of the things as I articulate my voice and find my passion and find more fire and inspiration, all of that benefits the company. And why wouldn't I want every single one of my employees to have that same thing?
Yes.
So, when someone starts a side hustle or, was like, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to do this, we're like, yes, go do it, right? I
Mhm.
mean, live your passion and follow your dreams. And so I really, really am excited about this conversation and about, this whole structure that you can put into place because if everybody's like, yeah, I can be me, and I don't have to hide it at
Yeah.
work, I can get support from my leadership and support from my colleagues. What impact can I make? And that's pretty powerful.
And on top of that, how many of the individuals that want to take a step outside the norm and start a side hustle, start this,
Yeah.
what do they hear from their friends and family? It's not typically support. It's
No,
"Oh, I don't. Yeah, that's going to be hard. That's going to be so." If work actually becomes the place of not just their main income source, but also the verbal support, right? The pouring out of like, yeah, you can do this, and let's connect you with some resources. And here's what I did in the past. Work becomes so much more than just a paycheck, and that's really in the last couple of years this great resignation. All the studies and surveys have shown that like people want to be valued for who they are, not just what they produce for the business. And this is a really cool way to do that.
totally agree. So now I think this is probably something you get asked all the time, right? But what is the difference between a goal and a dream, right? I have my goals, but I have my dreams, and how do they work together?
Yeah, I do get asked that all the time. I think goals are much more straightforward. And I've been in the role that I'm in now, I've been helping individuals set goals for 15 years at work. And I can tell you that we naturally will set goals that we know we can hit, right? It feels good to hit a goal. A
Yeah.
goal is meant to be a stretch thing, right? It's about who you become in the process and who cares if you hit it, but are you making strides forward? But that's not how most people do it. What I find when I take people through and I change the terminology to dream, it allows us to be ungrounded. One of the things that I set the table with when I talk to people about dreams, I'm like, hey, we're going to make this big list. These are not things that you're committing to doing. They're not things that you're like, yes, I'm going to do that. There are things that if you ever had the opportunity to, you'd be really excited about. So what I find is that when we do it this way and we kind of operate out of this abundance mindset, people will write down these outlandish things with just writing it down is the first step of, well, maybe I could do it. And all of the conversation around the dreams comes from this place of how can I? And I think that that's such a cool conversation to be able to have because again, as I was saying, there's, family support, all that. We usually don't have people in our family that say, you want to do blank? You could totally do that. It's usually, let me tell you all the reasons that's not going to work. And we live in a very different world than even 10, 15, 20 years ago. So when we're taking the, advice of somebody in our family that hasn't done what we want to do, it makes sense that, we're not going to go out of the norm or, step out of our comfort zone to go test something. And so I think that the way that I would easily describe it, dreams give us permission to think big like we did when we were younger, not in a committed way, just saying, hey, let me put it down. And then that at least allows us to start to entertain if it were to happen, how would it? And there's some neat things that triggers.
Oh, totally agree. The doors that it can open, right? Like
Mhm.
it's kind of like that future priming mentality of you start to see patterns or a door opens and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to walk through that
Yep.
door because I've put it out there and now it's a realm of possibility in my mindset. So I've definitely experienced that. I've tons of friends who have experienced it of putting just like saying this is what I
Yes.
want to do, even if it's so audacious, and the next thing maybe they're not doing that, but another opportunity
Yep.
came about because of putting it out there.
Yeah. And it's if we just keep doing all the stuff that we're doing, our life doesn't stay the same. It's always moving, right?
Right.
It's either getting
Yeah.
great or more exciting or less exciting, but it doesn't stay the same. And I think, so many people hit this spot in life where it's like it is really easy to get complacent. We got kids, right? That takes up how much of our time and our mental focus. We have our jobs,
Mhm.
our mortgage, our spouse. And so all of a sudden our calendar gets filled with all these obligatory things. And we don't do anything that like lights us up in a way that's like, oh, I'm doing something new or I'm switching up my schedule and that's what I love about the dreams thing. Even if somebody's doing just one per quarter, it's something to keep them moving in this like, uncharted territory. And I think that's a really, really cool place for somebody to live.
Yeah. So explain that. Explain the dream culture and how a leader goes about putting it into place.
Yeah. So step one is just the leader has to be willing to do this themselves. So I love that you're like, this is what I've been doing anyways. I just didn't know it was this, right? And I've worked with a lot. The people that have brought me in to work with their company have all been people like that. That when they hear it as a leader, they're like, this is, I just haven't sat down to write out what it is, but this is what I've been doing. And so we help create the kind of the facilitation of creating the list. So next week I'm doing this for UPS, not as a corporate, but a smaller UPS branch. And I'll go and I'll walk their 50 employees through the dreams exercise. It takes about 2-3 hours, and at the end of this, I'll have 200 to 300 things on their list That's the starting point. And even if that's all a company does, that's actually great work because now it's something is on their radar. And at the end of that, they take action on one thing. So in the next 3 to 6 months, they get something done that's on their dreams list. What the leader can then do leading that is constantly sharing who's accomplishing their dreams. So I have a meeting for my internal team next week. And one of the very first slides, it has our mission statement, which is for us, our mission is to live the life of our dreams and inspire others to do the same. And the next slide will have everybody that accomplished a dream in the last month. And we give them an opportunity for 30 to 60 seconds to say, hey, Carrie, I know that you just went to this Motley Crue was one of them from one of my guys concert with your father. You want to share a highlight from it or something. And so it gives that person an opportunity to relive it. It also recognizes somebody on the team for who they are, not what they're doing at work. And it's a really nice, gentle nudge to the other people to be like, I got to get back to my list. And what happens is, just like anything, there are certain people that run with this. And I have an individual, a young man on my team named Alex Funk. This guy is so exceptional. And if I wasn't doing this, I would have lost him for sure. Like he would have gone to something else. But he has these dreams of writing a book. So he's, loves working with me because he's like, what'd you do here? How'd you do this? He's 23, and last year he accomplished over 100 dreams on his list. And so it's literally like every week he's doing something that he's never done before. He's 23. He owns a couple properties already. Like he's pacing to live this amazing life. And it really comes back to like he has this menu of so many different things to pick from.
And so how do you keep this like front and center, right? Because like you said, I went and it was awesome for a month and then I
Yeah.
went back to like my normal life. Like so you go, you do this workshop, everybody has their dreams. How do you as a leader have a framework to keep it front and center?
So one of the most important things is getting access to people's lists.
Mhm.
So whenever I do one of the workshops, we'll always try and incentivize people to share their list, right?
Yeah.
So it's something as simple as, hey, team, you made these amazing lists. That's great. One of the things that I want to make sure that our business helps enable you to be able to live these dreams. I would love to see them if you're comfortable with that. I like to do contests, promotions, Christmas gifts, whatever. And I'd love it to be things that are on your dreams list. So whenever I do a contest, it's never do I waste any money. It's always like, hey, Carrie won something. I was planning on spending maybe $300. Let me check out Carrie's dreams list. And then I go shopping on somebody's dreams list. And I say, hey, Carrie, I noticed that you wanted to see this one comedian. I noticed that they're on tour. Are you going to be in town on this day? I'd love to buy you and your significant other tickets. Right. And so it's just that to me is the easiest way is like no wasted dollars. All my dollars
Yeah.
for gifts are targeted towards this. But the most important thing is that the leader is committed to living some of their own dreams and then sharing those publicly when they do.
Mhm.
And I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that will again always encourage other people. The last thing that we want is for this to be some obligation. We have enough
Right.
obligations in life. And so what
Yeah.
I found is that if I can get a few people on the team moving, they fall in love with the process. And I don't need to do it. Alex Funk, this guy, I don't need to encourage him to pursue his dreams. I just need to check in so he can update me what they are so I can
Yeah.
share that with everybody else.
And so how does that, right? You use him as an example saying you would have lost him if you wouldn't have done it. What do you think the hook is with retaining talent with this dreams model?
Well, I think part of retaining talent is what I said before. I've heard a lot of these different sayings. One that I firmly believe in. I don't think people leave jobs. I think they leave leaders.
Mhm.
And so, I was taught that the I'm the lid to the development of my people. And so if I am not living an exciting life, if I'm not growing personally and pursuing new things, I'm most likely going to not be that attractive for that A talent person. Right. So they're looking constantly at, can I make a future here for myself? And they're going to look to who their leaders are typically to say, is that a lifestyle that I'd be excited about? If not, I'm
Yeah.
probably going to move elsewhere. We're also in this, I work with a ton of 18 to 24-year-olds. And I can tell you that group, it's like the whole go to college, get one job and stay in that job. It's like, that's not how they think. It is,
Mm.
I'm going to get a job, but I'm going to have this side thing and I'm going to do this. And it's the world of many right now in terms of having multiple focuses and multiple streams of income, especially for that top talent. And so for me, I feel like I've been able to retain these individuals post college because I've been able to get them excited about and showing them a roadmap of here's how you invest in your first property at the age of 21, 22. Here's how you house hack. Here's how you, and I think in the past, I worked out a scarcity where it was, I don't want to talk about things that are outside of what we do as a career because I don't want to lose them. And what was happening is I was losing them because I wasn't. And if I'm showing them that this can be the thing that's the engine to all these other things, I'm going to keep that person for a lot longer.
One of the things that I've been thinking through around this whole quiet quitting trend, or at least, label that we've been giving, is the whole idea of how just showing up, to do the bare minimum, or even just having a ton of focuses can really actually be debilitating for your career. Because like I know that I've had crappy jobs in my 20s, and it led me to, to some dark places because overall I wasn't happy. But the things that I learned through persevering and about bosses and not going to work this, and still being able to show up and do a really good job, like that's valuable to me.
Yeah.
And I think about so many Gen Zers who do have a lot of different focuses, and who also are okay with saying, "Yeah, great. I'll just show up and, do my 40 hours and find fulfillment outside." Like you're missing out, right? You're letting yourself
Yeah.
off the hook. You're letting out yourself off the hook for like really trying to figure out who you are and what you're good at. If you just like half ass it, right? You're never going to
Yes.
really learn that, or maybe
Yep.
later on. And you're also letting yourself off the hook from like going to a company. If that company is not going to fill your bucket,
Yep.
you're letting yourself off the hook for not going out there and finding something that is more powerful, right? A company like yours, working for somebody like you who really is going to help you get fired up about what you're doing in life and in your career. So, I think that's a really powerful thing is if what you're talking about here is that whole idea of getting people to stay because they are energized, not just about their work, but about, how work feeds into their personal life and
Yeah.
how they can be their whole selves.
And I think, and Carrie, what you had mentioned before we started recording, you were talking about like your team being growth minded and why that matters right now
Yeah.
so much, right? And there's
Yeah.
this whole underlying thing to this dreams concept, which is if I'm talking to people about living this really exciting life that's on paper that they wrote down, it's like, you're not the person right now that's capable of living that life. And we talk about that all the time. If I was capable, I'd be doing those things now. So if I want, and this, I give the same message all the time to our people when we onboard them, which is, look, if I were to ask you, what kind of family life do you have in the future, 10, 20 years from now? You'd probably say, oh, it's so amazing. I'm at all my kids' things and I've got a great relationship. And then I'd say, what's your relationship with your spouse? Oh, we're so in love and we spend all this time together. Great. What about vocation? Like, oh, I'm kicking butt at business, or I own my own thing, or I'm doing these great. And what about this? Oh, I'm super healthy. I'm involved in my church. Great. Guess what? You're probably not the type of person that can accomplish that yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so for you to do all of that, you've got to be growing yourself. And so it gets back to this whole, what are you doing to grow yourself? And that I think answers some of the things you're talking about of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
challenging yourself and not just clocking in and clocking out, but, working on those, the self disciplines and the mental toughness and those types of things. And so that for us is well, we have to do that if we want to have the fun.
I love that. I'm so, so glad you said that. It's so incredibly important, right? I mean, it's that whole idea of you can't just like imagine that you want to be
Yes.
somebody
Right.
and have a certain life and then not do the work to get there.
Yep.
And so I think I don't remember thinking like that in my 20s,
Mm-mm.
right? I didn't have any idea what I wanted, right? We weren't talking about dreams. Like,
Right.
well, I don't know about you. I'm a Gen Xer, right? So it was very like pragmatic, and you're going to rise and grind,
Yep.
and that's how you climb the corporate ladder. And no one ever encouraged me to like think about what I really wanted to be
Right.
and who I really was, right? I was just following the expectations that had been set out for me. And so now there's like this whole I think kids have this new opportunity, right? Because there is so much more of this talk of work-life balance and
Yep.
creating your life and all of that just did not exist when I was a teenager and in my 20s. So but you gotta do the work.
Yeah.
And so it's so much better when you're doing the work with intention versus like me doing the work literally because I didn't know why, just because
Yeah.
I was supposed to work.
And and with that, it's like you're totally right. There's so many people that don't know what they want to do. And the reason
Yeah,
they don't know is because we kind of are just ushered through step by step, right? Okay, you're gonna go to high school and then you got to pick a safe major, go to college, and nobody's like, hey, what are the things that really light you up? What about this?
yeah,
And so what I also love about the dream stuff is I think that we find the things that we would love to do by exploring life more.
yeah,
And the whole idea of the dreams list is like, hey, who cares if it's your job? Go and do these things. And through that, you're going to start to find out, oh wow, this experience, I loved that. Ooh, this thing here for my job, I'm really good at. And then trying to find what are my strengths, what are my passions, and is there a way to monetize this? And I think that,
yeah,
you know, we the world is so different in terms of technology and the jobs that are available and how we can work them and remote. So I think it calls for people to be different types of leaders now than
yeah.
what maybe got the job done 10 years ago.
No. And I have to say, I am incredibly grateful for my crappy jobs. Right? I mean, and I learned so much about
Mhm.
myself through crappy jobs and what I didn't want, which is sometimes just as powerful
Yeah.
having, it can be even more powerful of going, what do I want? Right?
Yep.
Because you're like, okay, absolutely, that is just not going to happen again.
Yep.
And so even though it's like miserable in the moment, the lessons that you learn from also having those experiences of like,
Yeah.
nope, not good, not aligned
Yeah.
with my strengths, not aligned from a culture. I don't want to do that kind of work is pretty powerful.
Yeah, you have an actual opinion that's rooted in experience as opposed to just like an idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. So tell me about the book. What made you write the book?
A friend of mine who had written a book and was really successful with it, and we had a COVID weekend, if you will. So it was like during the thick of COVID, and we got some time together, and he said, "You need to write a book." And I said, "What are you talking about? I don't have time for that." And I said, "I don't even know what I'd write it on." And he's like, "You're totally missing it. You've been doing the dreams thing in your business, and this guy's close to me. He also used to work with the same company, and he said, you need to write a book about that." And he's like, "That's your thing. Everybody knows you in the company for that." And I said, huh, I guess I didn't realize that that would be a thing. And so he helped me kind of with the process and took me about a year. And then I released it last September. But the book is basically an A to Z guide for anybody that would want to set up a culture centered around dreams. And so I wrote it with the intention of there shouldn't be more info needed. It's all right here. It teaches you how to do the initial brainstorming or dreamstorming process. It teaches you how to keep it going within your organization. And so that was the goal, was to try and get more organizations set up like that. And then I've been able to do speaking and consulting with it for people that are like, hey, I think my team would rather hear this from somebody else than me. And then the leader's able to go through the process as well. But that was the point of the book, was to make sure anybody could do it.
And did you develop any new dreams while writing it?
Oh, always. So I feel like I'm the luckiest guy ever. I get to take teams through this dreamstorming process, and one of the things that they do is when I facilitate this, we put people into groups and they share and steal. So they'll share some selected ones of like, oh, I want to share this. I'm walking around. I'm not critiquing. I have a notepad. I'm walking around. I'm like, ooh, I'm constantly stealing people's dreams. Where I'm like, that's going to bite them. I've got about 500 that are on my list that I haven't done, let alone the ones that I've been able to get done. So, yes, I absolutely am stealing dreams constantly.
And being a competitive person, I mean, are you keeping track of like, am I beating year over year the number of dreams I'm getting?
I definitely was for a while where it was like each year I need to
Yeah.
have more, and now it's
Yeah.
not. My sweet spot is kind of like I'm usually somewhere in the like 20 to 25 dreams that I get done each
Yeah.
year, but the magnitude of the dreams also change, right? In terms of
Yes.
it might not be as many this year, but we had some really big ones.
Yeah. So what dream are you working on right now?
What dream am I working on right now? So I just last weekend I did my first ever like off the grid in the mountains backpacking trip. So
Yeah.
that had been a dream on there for a while to be like, unreachable, if you will. And I did that
Yeah.
with three other guys that had the same idea, and that was amazing. That's so. I guess I'm not working on that anymore, but that's
Yeah.
the most recent one. Yeah.
Great example. Great example. Thank you. Awesome. So much fun. And your workshops, do you do those both in person, virtually? Like how does that work?
Yeah, both in person. Though the UPS one that I've got next week, that's in person where they'll have about 40, 50 employees that are all together. I also do virtual ones on Zoom. Sometimes those are
Mhm,
easier for a team that works remote, anyways.
mhm.
Right. But yeah, I do them both in person and online. And then I work with some companies towards integration as well beyond that event in terms of like, hey, here's a 12-month, fulfillment to get the roots of this program rolling. Yeah. And I also at the beginning of this year, I decided to try and get as many businesses to do the dream stuff as possible. So I'm giving away the book for free basically online. And so anybody who goes to daneespegard.com/free gift, they can get a free downloadable copy of the book as well.
Cool. Excellent. Awesome. Well, I'll include that in the show notes. And how else can people find you?
My website and then probably Instagram or LinkedIn are the other two main ones. I'm the only Dane Espegard that's out there. So anybody who does a dream, tag me on Instagram. I love seeing those. That's kind of my favorite thing is when somebody tags me on there and says, "Oh, I just got a dream done." Those are cool.
Awesome. Cool. I'll include all that in the show notes. Okay. So, two last questions before we leave for the day. So, the name of this podcast is Reflect Forward. What does Reflect Forward mean to you?
To me, I get that image of like rear view mirror windshield, right?
Yeah.
And the proportion of that where the rear view mirror is literally only this large compared to how large the forward focus is. So reflect forward to me means, making sure that I'm referencing my past experiences, not as factual and future, but in, perspective to say, how have I shown up and where am I able to show up better for, what's to come.
And there's a reason why the windshield is bigger than the
Mhm.
rearview mirror, right?
Absolutely.
Love it. Good. All right. And if you had one piece of advice for leaders looking to be the very best at what they do, what would that be?
Being the best at what they do, I'd say trying to find the sweet spot. In the way that I reference the sweet spot is being in a situation where there are people that you're learning from, people that you're learning with, and then people that you're teaching. And I think sometimes when we reach the top of our organization or we run our own team, we're in a place that we're teaching, but we sometimes miss out on having that peer group or somebody that's teaching us as well. And so maybe that means hiring a coach or, leveling up your outside group, I think is important. But that to me, that sweet spot I think is really important.
And always being open to learning from your team. I mean, I work with so many brilliant people, and every day I learn something new from one of my employees. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad that we had this conversation because I just learned something. So
Yeah.
it's when you have that mindset of I'm always learning from everyone, it's amazing where you can find those lessons and those gifts.
Yeah. I absolutely agree.
Wonderful. All right, Dane. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a true pleasure to get to know you and to talk about this. And I cannot wait to try the dreams culture exercises. I can absolutely see the value in it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, Carrie. This has been great.
Absolutely. All right, hang tight and I'll be right back. All right. I hope you enjoyed learning about how to create happier, more engaged employees through living the dream culture. I loved that interview. I'm going to have him come in and work with us at Stone Age. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. So, with that, I'm going to leave you for this week, and I will see you next week. If you like this podcast, as always, please write a review, share it, subscribe to it, send me a note. I appreciate all of the feedback that you have for me. And feel free to send me a question for advice from the CEO. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day, and see you next week.